Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I Man here from the Block Runner, and today we're going to be talking about Edgeware. And before we talk about that, let's touch base with Bitcoin. And it looks like it tested a little local top at 60 grand, and it totally rejected.
Mm.
So I think we might go to a little pattern here of like testing, and then it's just going to break through. And
Breakthrough or breakdown?
no, it's going to break through, dude. Come on,
Think so?
break down.
Why
This
not,
this
dude?
is this is a bull market, I man.
I mean, dude,
Look
I
at
know.
this. Let me zoom out for you.
Let's zoom out.
Yeah, look at that. How is this not going to go up?
I mean, things can go down and then still go up later, which is perfectly fine. There's no reason why we can't retest that green line you drew up. You know what I mean? Why
Yeah,
not, dude?
I think we could, but I think it's almost the end of March. I think we're starting to run out of time before like Bitcoin like actually makes some more moves up. But my bet, if anything, at some point, it's in the short term, like within a week or two, it's gonna break that 61 all-time high barrier and then just keep going ham.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll hold you to that, dude.
Right.
Couple
So,
weeks.
yeah, let's draw that square at 2 weeks
Okay.
from its all-time high, just so we can start tracking it. Right. So let me go put.
Well, for sure, this breakout we saw out of your previous square was a total fake out.
Was it a
Right.
fake out? You
Yeah,
consider
man.
this?
Everyone was like, "Oh my God, we broke through the square that
You,
Will drew."
yeah, but you consider that a fake out? I mean, it broke out.
Totally, because usually breakouts are indication of like more upside movement, and it didn't do that. It completely faked us out. I'm pretty sure a lot of people bought in at that breakout point because that's what you're supposed to do, right? As a technical analysis trader,
Yeah, sure,
you set your resistance points, and look, you have confirmation a day like at least on the 4 hour that we're breaking above that resistance. So it's like,
sure.
okay, this is my time to enter, and they got bugged. You
Well,
know,
if you're going to be doing day trading like you're saying, then what you do is you buy at this point, right? You made some profit, right? And if you kept holding, you would also not only buy at this point, but set your stop loss somewhere down here too.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, you didn't. Obviously, you're not crushed,
Yeah,
but you're
so
not
so
happy.
if
You did
if
be
that's your
gaining.
strategy is then you better be setting stop losses because otherwise you're right. It could have completely broken down to this yellow line or this green line, and you could have gotten wrecked.
And it still can.
And it
Like
still can
everyone,
for sure.
yeah. So
But you wouldn't be worried about that if you're day trading because you're setting your stop losses as you should properly do.
so
But if you're in the long term, like if you're looking at the Willy Woo charts or Plan B charts, then you know that this is going to go to beyond 100,000, right?
true that. True that.
But anyway, so let's talk about Edgeware. So Edgeware has a close competitor that we've talked about before,
Mhm.
and called Moonbeam. But first before we talk about Edgeware, let's just talk about the macro perspective as to what's going on with Polkadot.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
So Polkadot has connections to these projects in a parachain fashion. A parachain is what allows them to integrate through the secure layer of Polkadot's relay chain. So this is what the entire Polkadot network is going to look like, and each connection is its own parachain, right? And
Mhm.
so when you look at projects like Moonbeam or Akala or Edgeware, they're basically one of these little nodes here, right? A parachain.
Mhm.
And if you look at Edgeware and Moonbeam, what they do is it's essentially a platform that allows developers to build on top of to leverage their parachain slot, right? Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
to provide that favorable, like scalable environment for adapt to, execute their smart contracts on, as opposed to Ethereum, where it's not a favorable smart contract environment.
mm-hmm. And your analogy would be like these are a bunch of second layer solutions to the Polkadot main chain.
Yeah, yeah. Because if they didn't have this architecture already set up, or at least envisioned, where there's going to be 100 at some point, 100 of these parachains already auctioned off and secured within the relay chain, it would just be Ethereum all over again. In the
Yeah.
sense that it would just be a main chain, totally congested with it's like a general purpose blockchain that's facilitating all of the different potential contracts and like
Yeah. Crypto kitties.
yeah, crypto kitties, freaking crypto buggies,
Yeah.
like freaking Casino X, Like there's just so much to do on a blockchain, right? So if you could segment all that activity off and like channel it into like its own individual compartments and then like connect it to that main chain, you don't have as much problem with what we're seeing today with Ethereum, you know?
Yeah, like if you were to imagine an example where this game on this parachain takes off, the transactions are happening on the blockchain on their parachain, on their strand, right, if you will. And instead of the transactions happening on the main chain, which could potentially clog the network, and all of a sudden the gas fees would mirror Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way they avoid that is through this parachain slot where transactions happen sort of quote unquote off chain, but everything's still on chain, but on their own chain.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have, so that's the kind of the foundational aspect of Polkadot. And
it's important because it's Ethereum wants to become this in the sense that it's part of their vision roadmap, but it's going to take potentially years longer to get to that point, you know? So like you're saying, from a macro perspective, what does that mean? The fact that Polkadot is already going to be positioned with this architecture already designed from the get-go.
Yeah.
Like what happens from the market perspective? Do the developers like gravitate towards this and, as opposed to, you know, waiting for Ethereum to finally get to that point, you know? I mean, that's what we do as speculators, right? We kind of like make these assumptions, like what will happen.
Yeah, and we were looking at the charts earlier today, and we were looking at how Bitcoin's, you know, roughly 50 grand. And if you do any sort of like technical analysis and moon math on Bitcoin, you could there's a reasonable expectation that it will go beyond 100,000. And so if it were to go beyond 100,000, then the market cap would essentially double, if not go beyond that, right? Mm-hmm. So now, having said that, the only way you could believe that Bitcoin is going to go to 100,000 and then potentially a million, and then one day, you know, 50 years from now, 10 million, whatever it is, you believe that because you understand how Bitcoin works. You understand why it's such a powerful invention, right? That's why you can believe that it can go to $10 million. Now, if you apply that to Polkadot, and if you believe that this sort of architecture is scalable, because I think they're doing 100 parachain offerings, but that's to start, right? They could support more than 100 parachains, so it's not locked down to 100. But if you believe that this is the right infrastructure for the foundation of blockchain going into the future, then you go back to the charts here and you see a $40 billion market cap, and it's or 35 billion, and it's not that huge.
Yeah, right now it feels big, right?
It feels big, yeah, because in relation to all the other ones, it is big.
Yeah. So,
but imagine if you were looking at Bitcoin at $35 billion.
Exactly.
Being number one right now at $35 billion. Would you hesitate? If you understood Bitcoin, would you really hesitate in just going all in you know, in a sane way, going all in? Mm-hmm. So that's what that's why, you know, we talk about this in the channel. We talk about like the technology and why it matters, and, you know, if it's scalable, and do we believe developers are going to build on top of it? And so far, our sentiment is this seems right. If as long as these little parachains can communicate with other parachains without having to wrap and bridge and do all this like jumping jacks for every single user out there. Mm-hmm. And so then we were talking about how we're expecting this to be rolled out from like a user experience. And one of the things that we mentioned was that if you are a dApp on one of these parachains, the idea here is to remain composable. So composability means like building tech in a way where other people can use it within their dApp. It's like Lego blocks.
Yeah, exactly.
And what we want to see here is that if a dApp really takes off in one of these parachains, we hope that dApp starts implementing other tech from other parachains so that we don't have to keep jumping around to different parachains, right? And it seems like, so this video is about Edgeware, and it seems like that's the mission of Edgeware, is to provide that user experience that we're expecting from blockchain projects. Even though if you go, and all the links will be in the description, but if you go to their roadmap and you read things like Edgeware bridges to Ethereum, obviously most of the developers on Ethereum. That's why we have the craze with DeFi and the craze with NFTs, and everything really starts with Ethereum. But ultimately, we cannot have these siloed projects. We can no longer have to jump networks in order to communicate with other projects. That's not the greatest user experience. That's not going to onboard the 7 to 8 billion people that we're going to need to onboard to bring people into the financial system.
Like if we had an ideal, like an ideal scenario where we, like if we were to draw it up and we could literally place, the pawns of this chess game where we want, at least in my perspective, I would completely nuke everything outside of the Polkadot ecosystem. Just nuke it all,
Yeah.
get rid of everything, and just take all that liquidity and bring it to Polkadot. Just because I think Polkadot has everything we need to build the future like internet of blockchains.
Yeah.
All these silos that we've identified over the last few months covering this space that are being built outside of Polkadot and Ethereum. It's just because these silos are growing and they're onboarding communities and liquidity, the blockchain industry as a whole has like such this ridiculous burden, this big problem to tackle as far as like connecting all of that together. It would be so much easier if we could just remove it all,
Yeah.
and just focus on one network, right? Polkadot.
Yeah.
But because that's not reality, because Ethereum could one day actually become bigger than Polkadot as far as like a much more expansive network,
Right.
of layer 2 chains or whatever, we have to account for that. And like part of the tech mission has to be, how do we bridge to all these different silos? And that's why things move so slow,
Yeah,
like
that's
it's
true.
a problem, dude.
NFTs were invented in, what was it, 2015, 2016?
Yeah.
And there was NFTs, like big NFT projects happening in 2017 when the last bull run happened. But
Yeah.
it didn't really take off until the subsequent bull run, where we saw NFTs do like 200 million a week with Top Shots. All of a sudden, NBA dips his toe into blockchain, and they do 200 million in a week. So when it comes to these different aggregating silos like Polkadot and Cosmos and all that, it's not sexy. It's not a sexy thing to invest in today. But in the next bull cycle, you're going to see probably the winners emerge for this sector. And this is a sector that's going to join all the different projects into a single network, kind of like the internet bridged all the different servers that hosted different websites together using the same protocols. Now, having said that, Polkadot obviously is a huge project. They are not alone in terms of trying to bridge all the different silos together, right? There's Cosmos.
As far as what, like a
Like,
silo, you're saying?
yeah, silo aggregators.
I don't necessarily know if they're aggregators. Just of course, every chain wants to figure out how to bridge to wherever the liquidity is, right? Like if you're gonna build one of these silos, part of your roadmap better be like we're bridging to Ethereum.
Yeah,
And
but
nowadays,
even if
finance,
you, but the thing is, even if you bridge to Ethereum, you're still a silo.
yeah, you're still a silo. All that means is like you're able to wrap your assets from one chain to the other.
Yeah,
Like you just, all you want is like your community, your user base for the dApps that are built on your network to have that option to jump from network to network. Because if you don't, then yeah, you're truly a silo. Like
yeah,
you'll
but
never win.
that's what we're talking about. Is in order to remove the aspect of silos, there needs to be a protocol that the next project, the next new project that is built from the ground up, uses these protocols and therefore can communicate with every chain out there. So the protocol that does that is Polkadot, and then there's another one called Cosmos.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple of couple of these projects that are trying to bridge or build these protocols so that there is no more siloing. So it's and one of those things that helps new projects in the future to develop on a protocol that is interoperable from the beginning is Edgeware. And so Edgeware has its own competitors called Moonbeam
And Plasm.
and there's
probably even more we haven't even identified.
yeah.
Because it is such an essential component to all this, like you're saying, like this, there's going to be competition for this, just like there's competition for layer 2 on Ethereum. Like there's never just like one size fits all solution to these problems. Everyone has like a different twist, a different spin. on the solution.
And you should really like Edgeware, because if you're huge on DAOs, I mean, Edgeware is a set of developers and creators and members of its community to build, fund, and manage their projects effectively. So it's sort of like a community-run project on eventually Polkadot, right? And it's completely run by its community. I mean, this is sort of different than when you see like a Moonbeam project. They build the tools for developers, and essentially that's pretty much it. Everything else is up to whoever builds the different projects that are needed to help other developers get onto Polkadot and service their users.
But remember, man, like this is the thing. Like there is a specific caveat to this whole crypto industry that like people like to overlook, and it is like that whole marketing element and that whole partnership potential. Like if it's much more difficult for a community to form these like business relationships than it would be for like a core team of people building this infrastructure out. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like it's.
But you know what? I totally agree with what you're saying. But if you were to come up with an idea that said, I want to build a website where people populate that website with actual information, and I'm going to call it Wikipedia, you would get zero investors, because it's an idea that you wouldn't think would work, but Wikipedia ended up working.
It did. I agree. Yeah, so like in the long run, maybe is what you're saying. Like these community things might end up winning out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is like we can't just shut down like community run projects.
No, I agree.
Even though we've seen elements of them actually working, DuckDAO, right? There's like good projects coming from communities. Now, there might be a point in time where every single project, every good project, the connotation of a project coming from a DAO is going to be a good connotation. In other words, that might be a reality.
Yeah, that's the point, right? Is to eliminate the trust element from like, you know, relying on just like a core team of people that you really don't even, in a lot of cases, don't know the true identity of their true agenda, you know. So you're taking a much bigger gamble as opposed to like a community of people who are like aligned, at least from an incentive perspective, right? Like
right.
it's something you could trust. It's just the thing we don't trust today is like the inefficiencies of that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a real good model of a DAO organization that's like the best run that we can kind of like point at and say this is how every DAO should be run, because it's still forming. So we're looking at Edgeware at 225 million market cap. So depending on like how you see its application, you know, this could be a good deal. But yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity. The Parachain offerings have not occurred yet. That's going to be a DAO vote on Polkadot, and nobody knows when that is. But once it does, I think obviously this is a sector to be paying attention to. So in order for you to be allocated any of these tokens, other than Edgeware, because they did a lock drop, so the tokens are already out there. But for other projects that don't have tokens that are trying to be on Polkadot, you have to lock up your dots in order to be allocated these tokens. So
yeah, the thing that's so cool about like this sector of Polkadot, like the Ethereum bridgers, essentially, is like because they exist and because they spent all this time building out this infrastructure before the launch of Polkadot, I think that's what's going to result in like just a rapid adoption. Like because the infrastructure is there. Just if you're a Solidity developer, you can just migrate all of your existing work.
That's right.
To the Polkadot network, like that.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
It's great. It's not like they're creating this whole new secondary language that the developers have to learn. It might take 2-3 years for that to take off. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Ethereum already handled that. You know, in 2015 or 2014 when they started.
Exactly. So they already went through that barrier of entry. Where like, okay, the whole new generation of devs have to figure out how to write these contracts. So let's work off of that. Okay, Solidity is the language of the future. Now let's just integrate that language into our chain, you know, and that's it. It's a great strategy for sure.
All right, that's our video for today. Hope you enjoyed and learned something new about Edgeware. Let us know if you have any questions in the comments section. Like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter @TheBlockRunner and also at MetaZone.io, and we will catch you in the next video.
Peace.